Okay, for our code together, we are going to write a program to calculate if a number is prime. The program will use a loop to repeat until the user quits the program. So I'm just going to copy that over. Program to calculate if a number is prime. Okay, then open up VS Code. So I've got VS Code right here. I'm in my CS1400 folder, and I've got my Module 1 and Module 2. If for whatever reason you don't have this open, you can go File and then Open Folder, and then find your CS1400, and you should be right in there. All right, so I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this one Module 3. Okay, and then inside there, I'm going to create a file called prime number.py. I'm going to close this just so I have maximum real estate, and I'll make this a little bit bigger. If you do Control+, that'll make that a little bit bigger. All right, I'm going to paste in what we're supposed to make this program to be. So if I come up here, so program to calculate, and then if I wanted to make this a comment, I can highlight both of these and then Control // that's going to make that a comment. And then remember, I can do a multi-line comment by doing 3 single quotes or double quotes. And here I can say that I am the programmer, obviously put in your name right here. And then this is going to be our description. And it's a little bit different than what we're trying to do here. This is kind of our pseudocode right here, which is just code that we're trying to help us to get the logic down, the process. So the description of this is determine if a number entered by the user is a prime number. Okay, so let's work on this first one. So program to calculate if a number is prime. We've kind of already worked through stuff like this as far as using a conditional. So let's go back to our example output. So for our example output, it says we've got this thing that says prime number calculator. So that's the first thing that we should print out. So I'm just going to do a print statement here and say prime number calculator. Okay, and that will print that out for us. All right, the next thing that I want to do is I want to get information in from the user. So let's create a variable, we'll call it user number, and I'm going to set it equal to, and I need to ask the user to enter in a number. So hopefully you remember the keyword input is how I get information in from the user. And I'm going to say enter in, how about just enter a positive number, put a space right there. Okay, hopefully you remember from last week, but if I get information from the console, from the user, it's going to return, see how this says str, it's going to return a string. We want that to be a number. In order to make this into a number, I'm going to cast this to an integer. So inside here, this will be a string, and then this will cast it to an integer. So now when I hover over that, user number is going to be an integer. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is let's create a Boolean. So I'm going to say, give a comment right here. So a Boolean to track if number is prime. That's just going to remind us that that's what the purpose of this is. And I want to give it a good, meaningful name. So let's call it number is prime, and I'm going to set it equal to true. And in Python, when we create a Boolean, we're going to do a capital T. So we're just going to say, starting out, we're going to say the number is true. Okay, so how do we figure out if a number is prime? So a prime number, remember from math, so a prime number is a number that is only divisible by 1 and itself. Okay, so an example of a prime number would be the number 3, right? So 3, the only multiples of 3 are 3 and 1. Okay, so that would be a prime number. Here, if we say the number 4, the multiples of 4 are a 4, right? and also a 2, and also a 1, right? 2 times 2 is 4. So this is not prime. Okay? Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to run a for loop right here. So a for loop is used when we know the number of times to loop. Okay? We have a number from the user, which is the user's number, right? And so that's where we want to loop through until we get to the user's name. And so here we're going to say for, and in the example in the previous video, we used I, but just to make it a little clearer, I'm going to call this divisor. Call that really whatever we want. So the divisor in, and then I'm going to use range, and inside the range we want to say 2. We want to start at the number 2, and we want to go up to but not including the user number. Okay, and when we run the debugger, maybe this will make a little bit more sense how we're making this work. Okay, so the divisor is now this number that'll start out. So the very first time that we run divisor, this is going to say 2, and we're going to go up to the user's number. So if the user number was 4, the first time we run through divisor would be 2, then the next time would be 3, and we would then end the loop. All right, so what we want to do here is we want to say if num, this is the number, the user number. So if the user's number, we'll talk about this, that's the modulus, that percentage, divisor equals 0. Okay, so let's talk about how this is working. Okay, so let's look at what happens the very first time. Let's say that our first number is a 4 that the user enters in. So we're going to do 4, which is user number, and then we're going to divide it by 2, which is the very first time. So that's a 2 right there, right? And then that equals 2, and the remainder for that is a 0, right? There's no remainder. This evenly divides in there. So because this is a 0, that indicates that the number is divisible by 2, which would make it mean that it is not prime. Right? Let's look at a different number. So let's say we did 3. So 3 divided by 2, that equals 1, and the remainder is 1. And so that's a prime number so far. So we would want to then go back through the loop, but since the user number is 3, that would be the last time that we go back through the loop. Okay, so when we do our breakpoints, this will hopefully make a little bit more sense. Okay, so down in here, we want to then indicate that the number is not a prime. So first thing we need to do is set our number is prime, and we want to set that equal to a false, because that is not a prime number because it is divisible by another number that's not 1 or itself. Okay, so we've set our flag right here. So then let's come down here and we'll do another condition. So we'll say if, and in this case, we'll say number is prime. Okay, so if this is a true, so if number is prime is set to true, then we want to print out the user's number, and then comma, and is prime. Okay, and then right here we'll say if, or we can just run an else statement. So else print user number is not prime. Okay, let's see if our code's working. So I'm going to save that, and we're going to run it by pressing this button right here, and we get prime number calculator. That looks good. So enter a positive number. Let's enter in a 4. And it says 4 is not a prime number. All right, let's rerun that. Let's enter in a 5. It says 5 is a prime number. So far it looks like our code is running correctly. Next, we'll take a look at a while loop, right? We don't want the user to have to continuously start the program back over again once it's only been answered one time. Next, we'll look at the while loop.